Welcome to episode 454, David Rubenstein and the Magna Carta. This is an outline of episode 454. There are three reasons we study David Rubenstein. First, he's the father of Patriotic Philanthropy. His most famous act, he donated the Magna Carta to the National Archives. Second, he co-founded Carlyle Group, one of the largest private equity firms in the United States. Third, he is famous for turning down Mark Zuckerberg's of Facebook's request for investment. Let us meet David Rubenstein.
I'm very pleased and honored to be here today. I want to thank David and all of your colleagues for doing such a wonderful job in making sure people know the Magna Carta is here and making sure it'll be available to everybody to see. Thank you.
Here's H.R. Perot, another billionaire. He bought the Magna Carta for $1.5 million in 1984 and sold to David Rubenstein for $21.3 million in 2007 at an auction. Here's the unveiling of the Magna Carta, which Rubenstein donated to the National Archives. David Rubenstein was born in Baltimore in 1949 to Jewish parents. He is the only child of Robert Rubenstein, who fought as a Marine in World War II and later worked in the post office. This partly explained Rubenstein's patriotism. As the only child, his parents' dream was for him to become a dentist. He was a good student in high school and won a scholarship to attend Duke University. He graduated from Duke University in 1970. In 1973, he earned a law degree from the University of Chicago. From 1973 to 75, Rubenstein practiced law in New York with Paul Weiss Law Firm. How he became White House staff at the young age of 27. He took a gamble on the peanut farmer called Jimmy Carter.
Get me out of the firm, so he helped me get a job with the man who would be, he said, the next president of the United States, and I could work at the White House just as he did. So I became the chief counsel on the Senate staff for a man who was then running for president of the United States. His name was Birch Bayh. He didn't make it. Somebody called me out of the blue and said, would you like to take an interview with somebody else running for president? I said, rolled my eyes, who? They said, Jimmy Carter. I said, isn't that peanut farmer from Georgia? Said, yes. I said, look, I can tell you one thing, he's not going to be president of the United States. Down there, Jimmy Carter was 33 points ahead of Gerald Ford. And when I finished, Carter won by 1 point. So Carter said, what was your contribution? But as we have learned recently and throughout the last 50 years or so, White House staff jobs are filled largely by people who work in the campaign. So I worked in the campaign, so I became the Deputy Domestic Policy Advisor to the President of the United States at the age of 27, 3 years out of law school. Now,
in 1987, he co-founded Carlyle Group with William Conway and Daniel Daniello. In this picture, David Rubenstein is the fellow in the middle. Rubenstein was 37 years old, and he said we would run out of time to be an entrepreneur. In 2018, Carlyle Group has grown to be one of the largest private equity firms in the world, with $200 billion asset under management, 1,575 employees in 31 countries across 6 continents. In private equity, he made his most famous miss. He was offered to buy Facebook for $10 million, but he rejected it.
So I think everybody's worried. On the other hand, people don't want to miss out on great deals. So people saw in the technology world that there was a company called Google, a company called Facebook, and a lot of people missed out on those opportunities. So now you see so many technology unicorns because everybody's afraid that they'll miss the next Facebook or Google. At some point,
you missed out on Facebook.
I did. My son-in-law-to-be told me about it when he was in college, and I said, this will never get anywhere. It's a dating service for college kids. I've looked at those kind of deals before. They don't get anywhere. I was wrong. If I put in the initial $10 million, that's worth about $35 billion today. So that was a mistake. Yeah, I've made a lot of mistakes.
But Beats was one you got right.
Rubenstein now has his own TV show with Bloomberg, where he interviews celebrities, especially billionaires.
Hello? Hello, is this thing on? why would you consider a job that has a smaller home and a older plane than you currently have? Why
That's
would
a
you,
very tough question and a very good question.
what would you say?
All
are
right,
the
can we
greatest
stop it
pleasures
actually
you have
right there for a
received
second
at
before we get
looking
any
at
further?
Okay, so
I wanna
this-
ask you about the
these are
president.
Good,
Sure.
thank you. This is good.
Before we get there.
All right, this is good.
Well, I watch your interview shows, so I know
We're
how
gonna
to do
keep
some
going.
interviews.
David Rubenstein is the father of patriotic philanthropy. So what is patriotic philanthropy?
Phenomenon in the sense that most of my philanthropy, to be honest, is I'm giving money to the education, universities, at K-12 education or medical research. But lots of people do that, and they better sums and bigger sums than me, and they're more engaged. But because I took one little area and no one else was doing much in it, it got more attention. And I more or less coined this phrase, patriotic philanthropy, though I guess all philanthropy is patriotic in a sense, you're helping your country. But what I meant by that was doing things to help your country when your country doesn't have the money to do it. And so I started really in a fluke way. I didn't have the intention to do it. If I had hired McKinsey and said, 1297 one did, and the impact is that it affected British law and ultimately was the inspiration for the Declaration of Independence, the Bill of Rights, the Constitution. So while it wasn't signed in this country, it did influence the Founding Fathers, as they said when they drafted it. And one of the reasons we broke away from England was because the Founding Fathers thought, and others in the country, that we had the rights of Englishmen, and the rights included the rights of the Magna Carta, and they weren't being granted by King George. So that led to the revolution. So I did get in the habit of buying other documents. So I bought some rare copies of the Declaration of Independence, rare copies of the Emancipation Proclamation, rare copies of the 13th Amendment, signed by Abraham Lincoln, and I put them not in my home, but in places where people can see them. So the State Department, the National Archives, the National Constitution Center, and the Congress and so forth, where people can see them, and ultimately they will go to these institutions.
What have I learned today? Two things. First, he's a man of tremendous energy. I think he's the first man to have interviewed more than 100 billionaires, from President Trump to Russian oligarch like Vladimir Putin. Second, he will forever be remembered as the father of patriotic philanthropy for the Magna Carta. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and leave your questions and comments below. My next video will be David Rubenstein, 8 lessons. Wishing everyone peace and prosperity.